And what you're doing is you're actually selecting different areas from that. So you see, I'm playing around with this a little bit. So this is an idea, okay? And an idea sketch doesn't take that long, and that's what a thumbnail sketch is. You're trying to figure out if you like this composition or another composition from something else in the still life, okay? All right, that's the end of the vocabulary. Now let's talk about this exercise. We've got, okay, there's two exercises, well, there's three. There's 2 pages. So you have, now this is about cross contour, but instead of using lines, I made these pictures with stripes. Stripes can commonly be used to help students learn about cross contour drawing, okay, in an easier way. So let's start with this particular drawing in A, and this one is very similar, as you can see, to this one from Lesson 6. And this is basically a rectangular piece of paper, and you had to use your measuring system to get the proportions right. So we're going to now talk about this same type of shape, because this is a difficult shape for students to draw, because it's a flat shape, it's a rectangle, but you see it and it looks like a diamond, but you want to draw it as a rectangle, and now it's even more complicated. So what I started to do here on the overlays was to talk about how you would approach doing these, and you don't just trace it, because there's a lot more to this than just tracing. First of all, the first thing I want you to do is count how many you will. Whenever you get stripes in projects as a student, you should always draw the number of stripes that are there. Don't make them up, because that will really get difficult when you learn to draw fabric, because this is how you approach drawing fabric, is by following the contour of the fabric. And so you have fabric that has a pattern in it, and usually it'll have stripes. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 black stripes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 white stripes. If you're to draw this, of course, if you're tracing it, you're just going to trace it. But I want you to be aware of what you're tracing and that you need to count these. Now, you'll notice that I outlined this. I'll just put this paper under here. What I wanted to show you is that whenever you draw, connect the corners accurately with diagonals. This particular shape is called a receding plane. It recedes away from you at an oblique angle. So how do you know where the middle is? Well, if you draw accurate diagonals on any receding plane, I don't care where it is or what shape it is, you will find the middle. Now, if you notice that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 black stripes, the middle stripe is the 4th one. So guess where this ends? It ends in the middle of the 4th one. But the middle is not the middle of the shape. If I take this, and the reason you're doing contour drawing and learning it with this way is so that you can understand how to draw things in depth, meaning to give it some sort of illusion of depth. Now, this is a ruler. I know the numbers are a little small, but this distance from here to there is 1 inch. The distance from here to the front is 1 1/4 inches. That's quite a big difference in even this small of a shape. The other thing that you'll notice when drawing stripes is this is called the closest corner to you, right here. And I just outlined that with a pencil and made it a little darker. This is the closest corner. In the closest corner, the black stripe will be the widest. back in this corner it will be the narrowest. It will also get narrower as it goes away from you because you're here. So everything gets smaller this way, it gets smaller that way, and it gets smaller this way. So it's easy for you to trace this one, but this is where you're learning to be aware, and you go, uh-oh, I guess if I get something like this to draw in the classroom, I'm going to have to really measure these to be aware that I can't make all these the same size. If you do, it'll look very flat and very odd. Okay? Now let's go to these two over here. I gave you you have three different options here: the flat shape, the rectilinear shape, and the cylinder. So let's talk about the rectilinear shape first. Now you notice what I did here, just to save a little time, was to draw, and forget about the bottom one right now, we're just talking about the top one. I drew the shape first. I want you to draw the shape first, don't just trace the lines, because you're not going to learn and figure out what is actually going on here. What we talked about in the last lesson, you remember, when we were drawing those boxes, these, remember? And I said that you have a lot of parallel planes. Well, what you'll notice when you do this is that this line and this line, these lines up here, these are parallel planes. And we know they're parallel, this top and this are parallel because this is a perpendicular box, right? The box is a right angle box, and so this plane will be parallel to this one. Something else that's probably you're not aware of, and I didn't do it here, but you can continue it, is that this is called a baseline here. Okay? Now I can extend this baseline out as long as it's a straight line. You see that? And I'm going to write baseline here. And I should have written baseline over here because this is also your baseline here. Now baseline means that from a horizontal position, which is the bottom of your paper, you have an angle here. This is an angle. And that angle, we don't know what it is. It is specific to you and your observation of the object. But you should always start with a baseline for drawing the object and get the angle correct based on the bottom of your paper. If you don't, then the whole drawing will be off. Here's the closest corner. Again. Okay, now watch what happens here. You notice I took this baseline out. I could extend these, I gotta keep this from moving here, extend these stripes if they're all parallel lines. You see that? You see how I'm drawing what's called drawing through the box, but you see if this went up, over, down the back, and then back out that way, and I'm just going to end it. I'll just end it right here. This, and also this stripe would be there too, right here. So I'm going to complete this really quick just to show you what I'm, just on these two. Okay. You see how the drawing through, this is the real appearance of what will happen if I was to have taken that all the way down and out the other side, which I did do on the bottom drawing of the cylinder, but I didn't do it on this one. So what you're trying to be careful at, first draw the shape, then draw the stripes over it, and label the baseline, and if you can, when you get back here, extend this one out and just see how that works for you. Okay, the last one we have is the most complicated, which is picture C, and that's a cylinder. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the baseline. You still have a baseline, and it's right here. So if you establish the angle of the baseline from the bottom of your paper or the bottom of your picture plane, that's the first thing. Then you remember from here, remember, all the way back to lesson 1, I said if you draw a square and you mark the middles, you can draw a circle. If you draw a rectangle and you mark the middles, you can draw an ellipse. Well, guess what? So the first thing I'm doing is once I got a baseline, I just drew vertical lines straight up touching the outside of this picture of a ellipse. All right? But what I noticed I did was I made this too high when I was drawing this. This one should have also touched. So I'm just going to, and guess what? I think I got my handy, this is the rubber eraser. Actually, it's better because then you get to, and the rubber works great on this vellum, this rubber eraser. It just takes this stuff right off. Really good. See that? Okay. So I got the baseline. I've got my rectilinear shape. It goes straight up because you don't have any funny angles for your verticals still. And you didn't have that in the last lesson either, remember? You had 2 of those rectilinear shapes to draw, and all the verticals were straight up and down. So that's what you're doing here. Once you get a baseline, they still have to be straight. Okay? The only thing is they're touching the edges of this ellipse. So now I measured it, you know, and I marked them. So now I can draw this ellipse in there. And this is a good place for you to practice this. We will be doing this more later. Okay? Now you've got this line and this one, and, you know, you can, now what you're probably going to see now is that while this line is probably going to be pretty close to parallel, what's starting to happen here, and this always happens, is that we start to get into perspective a little bit. But this is, see this bottom shape? You see what I did? This is just an elongated version of this one in another direction. So you're just building something new from something old that you already did, okay? It's not going to be anything really different. And this, is, again, is called drawing through. I'm drawing one piece at a time. I draw this, then I'm going to draw the front, and then I'm going to go back this way. And what I'm doing is these 2 lines are about like this, so I'm going to just mimic those and draw another one. One this way, and one this way, and one this way. So now I need, what I want now is I want to just touch the top of this one here, because I'm touching the top of the circle of the ellipse back here. That's really a circle. Then you end up with, you see what I did was I actually made another rectilinear shape. That's what I did. This one's a little crooked. So I basically drew this without drawing the circle. Now it becomes a lot easier for you to draw the circle because you can place it inside of this. Now the first thing I would say in doing a line drawing is that you just follow this line here and this one back to here and this one down to there. Now again, if for all intents and purposes for most of you right now, if the main thing you're trying to do here is, and this one's a little off, but the main thing you're trying to do is to start to visualize shapes. And this type of drawing, contour drawing, helps you to visualize shapes. This type of visualization is a little different, and you'll pick this up a little later in the semester. But basically what I wanted to illustrate here by doing this was that as much as your interest allows, what you're trying to do is draw the shape before you draw the contour lines on it, okay? Because just tracing this won't really help you as much, and so you want to try and do a little more with it. Now these lines here are also picked up exactly back here, just like up here. The only thing you're going to see in this type of, in a curved shape when doing this type of drawing with stripes, and I'm going to just do one and then I'm going to show you here, is that they come to what's called a scallop, and I'm going to make it darker here for you. And basically what happens is as they wrap around the shape, they turn into a point. And they don't just stop like these do up here. So once you have fun with those, and once you learn to do these, you'll be able to move on to drawing some of these in a still life situation, and then go on to fabric. So that's the end of, and these are all done. Your instructor will talk to you about that, but these are whatever ones you do in the classroom. But these you simply have 2 sheets here, so you can do this work on here and this one on this one. So that's the end of this lecture on Lesson 8 on vocabulary and cross contour drawing.